Coogs House. The Houston Cougars were the talk of Big 12 media day to day, but the focus was on three of them in particular.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs, live from Big 12 Media Days. They're tearing it down behind us because we're at the very, very end. I'm host Parker Ainsworth, joined by Kenneth Bowman of Coog TV. Kenneth, Big 12 Media Days is in the books, which is kind of hard to believe. It felt like a whirlwind of a day. We're going to get into talking about freshmen, about transfer portal, about all the different things that people really want to talk about today. But I got to be honest, I really want to talk about the puppies.
I actually did not. I did not interact with the dogs. Yeah, he was like, "You don't like puppies?" I'm like, they're cool, but I mean, it's media day. It's basketball. Like, what does dogs have to do with it?
I will say, I'm surprised Lauren Sampson didn't take any home. I thought she was about to take at least a couple home, and I felt like Kelvin got pissed at a couple points in the course of the day because he was like tired of asking the same couple questions. But the dogs really mellowed him out. Now, those questions he kept getting asked, I felt like were very clearly people asking about the multiple five-star freshmen, plural, coming in, right? And I don't know, Kenneth, I heard him talk about it in a couple different settings. There was the breakout on stage, in the back, colloquially, even just like in passing. He talked to Big 12 radio about it for a second. It felt like he kept getting asked about how he's pulling them into the culture and adapting them and pulling them along, whatever. And he was like, they're not my best players. Did you feel like there was a point or a tipping point for him to get like, I want to talk about my actual best players, or was it just kind of did you ever feel like it switched, I guess?
Honestly, I mean, we been looking at the team all summer. I think they've been asking. Well, we only asked him about the 5 stars probably once, and that was it. Because as local media, we kind of know like don't keep asking Kelvin the same questions, and he already gave his take on his 5 stars and what he thinks about them. They are a talented group. They are talented individually, but like you said, they're not the best players on the team, and Kelvin seems to think that too.
He kept going back to obviously JoJo, Milos, and Emmanuel, and it's funny. You'd think after having made a run to the national title game last year, Milos is unanimous preseason All Big 12, dabbled in the NBA draft circles for a second. Emmanuel, I mean, he was player of the region in their region, had a big performance on this floor right here in T-Mobile in the Big 12 title game. And ultimately, unfortunately, also had bonus hands at the end of the game, right? Like you think people would know these guys' names, but it was still asking about Chris Cenac, asking about Isiah Harwell, asking about Kingston Flemings. And I don't know. I wonder, if it's just a hot new thing. AJ DeBonsa's here representing BYU. Coapita's here representing Arizona. Did you feel like, I mean, frankly, Houston brought not freshmen. Houston didn't even bring JoJo. They brought just seniors. Did you feel like the conversation was too skewed towards freshmen, or was it just not what Kelvin wanted to talk about?
Maybe a little bit of both. I mean, I think two things can be true at once, but also, yeah. I mean, he didn't want to talk about the freshmen. Like I said, we already asked him about them. He doesn't like talking about them a lot. He wants to talk about his vets and seniors. Those are the people that have been in the culture. They've been on the team. They know how things operate. But I mean, people, the people look at the stars, the numbers, the rankings. It is exciting to think about that Houston has 3 5 stars on one team. Honestly, something that hasn't really been done before in the past. But Kelvin doesn't want to talk about it. He said it. He's been calling me trash all summer, like to put it bluntly. But I mean, if Kelvin Sampson's calling you trash, I feel like you might be doing something right.
I feel like it's one of those moments where if he's talking to you, I don't care what he's calling you. That's a good sign.
Yeah,
right. That's a good sign. He also brought it up in conversations when I didn't hear someone ask him about the scrimmage, but then unprovoked, he was talking on the stage about the scrimmage because they asked him about, building the culture and introducing guys, coaching them quickly or whatever. And Emmanuel was like, before we can get to talk about the scrimmage, did any of y'all watch it? Did anyone else see it? And the answer is no one. It was closed doors. And he was like, I played 13 guys in the first half. And not to get too silly with it, my immediate next question is, okay, there's 14 guys on the roster. Kenneth, who didn't play this?
Probably Jacob McFarland. He's I don't know if he's back. I saw some clips of him. He was working out with JoJo and Cenac and all those guys, but I think he's still injured. So I think that would be my guess.
Probably.
That would be my guess on who didn't play.
I feel like it's probably Jacob McFarland, like you're saying, is still coming back, still working his way back. He is live in drills and stuff like that, but it's a little bit different, obviously, in live action. As far as the freshman things go, I mean, last year, and I was talking, I did a crossover with Locked On Kansas Jayhawks host Derek Johnson, and I had to remind him, like, Houston was 4-3 at one point last year. Yeah. That's been just forgotten about. I'm assuming, based on Kelvin's statements today, we shouldn't be surprised we look up and we're 500 in mid-December, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a little bit of different situation from last year. They were 4-3. I think all those losses came in the Players Era tournament. One of them was to Auburn. Honestly, all three of those losses is that they couldn't finish. Like they had leads in all those games and they just couldn't finish. And then think about that. You have Milos Ujan. He honestly didn't know what he's doing at this point in the year last year. He's come off with a broken nose and he was still feeling it out. And then he fouled out a couple times too, and that obviously hurt their chances of winning those matches. But I think this year they might be I don't see them being 4-3 or whatever.
I don't know. So it's interesting because I actually feel like without knowing a lot about Tennessee and Syracuse yet, or who your third opponent is in the Players Era tournament, I could almost make the argument this year's schedule is not quite as rough as a year ago. Auburn, I don't think is quite as good, but you got to play them much closer to their place, so that may negate that a little bit. It's just a fascinating way to get started, and I think it's awesome. It's awesome in the sense of, like, I have awe for it, the way that Kelvin continues to not focus on November, not even really January. He's looking at February, March, and getting into April and winning in April is the big goal. I have to say, though, I understand why he's frustrated by the questions. I am excited about the freshmen.
Yeah, I mean, I want to see them hoop. Like Isiah, Harwell, Kingston Fleming, Christian Knight, Bryce Jackson, maybe too. I want to see all those guys play. This is an exciting team. I think talent. I think it's talent level there. It's a more talented team than they had last year, just with the freshmen. And then you have that mix of young talent with the experienced vets as well.
Young and experienced. I think it's actually interesting that they're going to theoretically, in their first 8 people of the rotation, they're going to flirt with that line almost perfectly. You got the 3 returners in JoJo, Emmanuel, and Milos, the 3 big-time freshmen in Chris Cenac, Isiah Harwell, and Kingston Fleming. And I don't mean to forget Bryce Jackson. Those guys are just 3 of the top 20 players in America, right? And then you probably also bring in Mercy Miller as a sophomore, probably play Chase McCarty as a redshirt freshman. Those guys figure to get some of your minutes as well. In that initial 8-man rotation, you kind of hit all 3 levels of experience. And I think it's an interesting way to build a roster. And I frankly think it is going to be interesting to see how it plays out as far as actually playing against an Auburn team with Todd Pettiford on it, or a Rick Barnes coach Tennessee team. I heard Sampson mentioned Rick Barnes' name 5 times today, and I was like, that feels unprovoked. So Kelvin had a lot to say about a lot of different things. One thing I want to ask you about, though, too, is you mentioned a bunch of freshmen coming in. We didn't mention Khalifa Sacco, the transfer came in. But a lot of the talk today was about transfers.
Today's show is brought to you by some folks over at Quo. Quo is one of those tools that helps make huge differences for your business and business owners. It used to be called Open Phone, same great business phone system you've heard us talk about before, just a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table. When every customer conversation counts towards your bottom line to make sure that phone system can keep you connected 24/7. Quo's #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app to your phone or computer, so no one carrying 2 phones or anything like that has to be the case anymore. I think of this more as the consumer, if I'm being really honest there, because I'm like, if I call someone and they don't answer, I'm going to the next one. Quo makes sure that doesn't happen, right? So your business does not have people ignoring you like I do. People don't answer the phone, which is way too many people in high school. That's a whole different conversation. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo from the open phone. Get started for free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedoncollege. It's quo.com/lockedoncollege. You can keep your own existing phone number for Quo. That didn't feel real. That's why I use no missed calls, no missed customers. Quo.
This episode is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. NFL season's here, but we're in October. Everything is here, right? You got World Series, NFL, college football, college basketball is obviously about to get started. Everything's going on right now, and you don't want to miss it with FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. You get $300 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. So pick a bet. Put down $5. If it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. That's things that you can use on like Houston to win the college basketball title, Kansas to win the college basketball title. I like Darren Peterson 10-1 odds to win the Wooden Award. That's all I'm going to say. So you can check those out and plenty others over at FanDuel. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started with FanDuel.
And so in talking about those transfers, Kenneth, it felt like all the coaches panels, the breakout sessions, Kelvin took a moment to talk about it and building a program and valuing this, valuing that. I've heard Big 12 radio guys talk about it back over there. The transfer portal thing came up a lot. I don't know if Kelvin is bidding to become commissioner of the Big 12 or involved in the NCAA offices, but he also wanted to talk about it. Did you feel like that was the focus of conversation, or am I just being super hyper about one thing?
Yeah, when Kelvin talks about the portal, U of H hasn't really been in the portal a lot. They've gotten a few. Milos Uzan and this year with Khalifa, but we haven't seen a U of H team that's been rebuilt via the portal. Like UCF, they lost all 14 of their roster guys. And
Baylor too.
Yeah, Baylor as well. And they had to rebuild an entire team through the portal. I think we haven't seen that with the U of H team, and I don't think that's happening anytime soon because the culture that Kelvin Sampson has, all the guys are bought in. They're bought in before they even get to the program, so he reduces their chances significantly of a guy leaving. And I think he just honestly, I really just think Kelvin Sampson was just trying to get this over with. He's just here so he doesn't get fined.
He's probably not he's not a person that's afraid to talk to you, but he's probably not a guy that thinks that media day is his favorite time, right, or anything like that. This is obligatory in a lot of ways. I thought he kept, though, in the conversation about transfers, talking about programs and players and what benefits both people. And he advocated for the idea of a one-time transfer, and then theoretically you have to sit out a year after that to transfer again. Interestingly, he's pulled in some you mentioned Miles Uzan, LJ Cryer as well, some one-time transfers, right? That got somewhere, things change, you want to get in LJ's case closer to home, or Milos's case wants to elevate the level of ball he's playing with because Oklahoma's kind of doing the rebuilding thing or whatever, right? I wonder, right? I always wonder why that was such a focal point. Big 12 Media Day in the football sense in July, it was we're going to talk about the 5+11 playoff format. I almost felt like there was a directive. Everyone talked about it all day long. Today, I feel like the thing was the transfer portal. And I'm like, well, why are we all talking about that all the time? Did that ever cross your mind?
It's a thing. Guys are transferring every year. There's guys that have been on 4 teams in 4 years. There are guys that go play for, been on multiple schools in one calendar year. So it's definitely a big topic. And I liked what he said about being proactive and not reactive, because I think it's with the way the NCAA will drop a ruling and everyone else is just scrambling and trying to adjust to what they can do with their program with new rules. So that's one thing I agree with Kelvin on. And honestly, I think he was more hinting at with the G League thing that they just announced, guys can go to the G League and still play in college. And he said, I didn't even know about that.
Well, and he referenced Tom Izzo at Michigan State was either recruiting or pulled in a G League guy. I couldn't quite understand which, and I should probably know that. But then he was like, I didn't know you could do that. And when I went to ask Kellen was like, yeah, we're recruiting one.
Yeah. And even then, Kellen's he's the head honcho in terms of recruiting. He's bringing the guys in, and then but you still got to come meet Coach Sam.
Yeah, well, and that's interesting too, because as much as we want to talk about roster construction and the role that plays in college basketball, Kelvin really did focus on like, my job is coaching my guys. At one point on the panel, he said something to the effect of like, he has a sign in his office, I want to say, he said that's like, all you can do is coach your team, right? And he's like, Kellen handles some of the recruiting stuff. NIL is wherever NIL is. That's none of his business. His deal is the X's, the O's, the on the court, the toughness, etc. And it frankly felt like he's trying to go to more of that old school. Kelvin Sampson's an old school kind of guy, model on all of that. You also, though, sat with me and listened to a bunch of coaches talk. It was not just Kelvin Sampson talking about transfer portals.
Yeah.
It was a lot of guys, old guys, young guys, guys new to the conference, guys that have been in the conference. It felt very thematic on the day. And I just always think that those are interesting themes to pick up on. Was there anyone else's take aside from Kelvin that you thought had a particularly interesting take on transferring? Because everyone, I mean, you mentioned Miles Uzan and I said LJ Cryer, everyone's pulled in someone. Maybe not someone's been to 4 places in 4 years.
Yeah.
Everyone's pulled in someone. Did anyone say anything about transferring that you heard and thought, oh, like I hadn't thought of it that way?
Not necessarily about transferring. And I like the perspective from UCF's head coach. As head coaches, head basketball coaches, they still have to teach these guys to, be young men and, make them learn things outside of basketball. It is a business. There's a lot of money and stuff involved. But I think they're kind of getting away from the point is that these head coaches are guiding these men or these boys essentially into men and letting them live their life for the rest of their life. And it's, having an experience. I mean, you're not going to forget you played D1 basketball.
No, and it's interesting. Like the John Dawkins, head coach at UCF, was one of the ones who I thought harped the most on like this is supposed to be developing young men in an interesting way. And frankly, like let's be honest, in terms of NIL dollars and all that, Houston is building their own athletic funding. So I don't mean this in a way that they're stones from a glass house or whatever. UCF doesn't have a lot of cash, right? Like they're not in the same kind of game necessarily. And so there may be some of that too, if I'm being a pessimist. But Johnny Dawkins hit on in a way like about growing young men or building young men because, Bill Self, Scott Drew talk about degrees. And I don't mean to say this negatively about degrees because they're both good schools. Truthfully, they're going to finish with a degree at wherever they finish their hours at, and they'll get a graduate degree from where they finish those hours at. Like they're going to end up with a degree through online school, whatever, right? And before the transfer portal, guys were – wasn't there the whole like North Carolina scandal where like they were taking some language the school didn't even offer, right? Like the degrees happen, and the kids do learn. I would argue they learn more on basketball court in a lot of ways because of the life lessons you learn in that. I worry about like, a kid is up and moving every 9 months. The psyche of being used as like the primary breadwinner for your family at 18, which happens to a lot of people. I mean, it's impossible, but like, you're uprooting your life every 9 months and getting coached differently by different groups of staff just to make, 50,000 there, 100,000, just to, pile a few extra stacks. And I will take any extra racks you got laying around. I do not mean to say I'm the guy turning down money here. It does feel like there's like an extra mental load that we may not fully, it's 2025. This is a 5-year ordeal. By 2050, what are we talking about with these guys that like, went through their entire college athletic process seeking a new bag every 6 months? Like who knows where any of that ends up playing out? I spoiler, I also teach and coach high school athletes. And there's a kid I coached. I don't have full transparency. He's on his 4th school in 4 years. And like he's a very well-rounded kid. He's got a great family at home. But I do wonder, like, who are your friends? like your teammates are changing every 6 months. I don't know. You're up closer and personal. Sampson's insulated from this a lot because they don't have the same. They've only lost 4 rotational guys to transfers in the last however many years. Sampson always cites it. It doesn't feel like this is an internal problem. It's a bigger picture problem.
Yeah, it's definitely like you said. These universities, these corporations are they're throwing money around. And, these are 18, 19, 20-year-old kids in college, and somebody offers you $100,000 to millions to come play, to come put a ball in a basket. I mean, that's nothing to, okay, well, I'll put you $3 million to come to your school. All right. Like, or however much the deal is. So, and like you said, like these people are like, it's not just for them. Like these people are feeding their families. They come from all different type of backgrounds. Like with the sport of basketball, it's kind of how they make it out and how they be successful. So young teenagers young early 20s and you're offering a bag, it is an external problem because you added the money aspect to the college game.
Well, and I had plenty of privileges growing up. I was never uncomfortable. If you'd have told me at 18 I can make $250,000 playing basketball, my family would have said yes. And then if the next year you said you can make they said yes again. Like, like it's not even necessarily that you came from dire straight. It's like that's just a lot of money. And it was just interesting to hear. Now I said one of the guys advocating, all the coaches were advocating for some sort of a tightening down of the transfer portal or whatever. But Bill Self, I thought, spoke from an area of wisdom where, like, he's built programs. He's seen the sport at its highest levels, et cetera. And Bill Self also directs the program that Kelvin Sampson literally called the bell cow and kind of his utmost praise. I want to get your opinion on that in 1 second.
To the show is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else as of August of 2025. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but. From smooth handling to intuitive controls, they have all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, so you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail with Mazda because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved.
And so we're joined by Kenneth Bowman of Coog TV, and we mentioned that Kelvin Sampson directly called Kansas the bell cow of the conference in a way that, frankly, you've probably heard people talk about Texas and Oklahoma in football in years prior and things like that. Now, I have a lot of takes on that. I talked with Derek, Locked on Jayhawks Coast. He was here. We talked about it for a second as well. But you, as a current student, you've been you've been at Houston for a couple of years now. You've only seen Houston win, and frankly, I don't mean this is really more about me being old, but as a younger guy, you're like, Kansas who? And so when you hear Sampson say that, what goes through? What is he talking about?
Yeah, I mean, since I've been here, like we've kind of dogged Kansas a couple times, but I think I kind of agree with that about Kansas being the bell cow. I mean, that's a program with a lot of history. And, you know, in being that they've survived the conference realignments and the NILs and the changes with the college sport. And I think they're going to be right back in the mix in the conference this year.
Well, and they have the big star freshman, Darren Peterson. They have the Fiore kid that was really good from last year. I thought he should have played more. They've got a very talented roster. They're always going to have a very talented roster, Kansas, right?
Yeah.
I wondered at times, like, is Kelvin – I mean – their record they've lost 5 total games, including postseason games in Big 12 play, right? Like, and that's in 2 years. They played, over 40 games between 2 years with postseasons. It just doesn't feel real that there's another contender, especially when we opened the show talking about how great this roster is. I almost wonder what is he getting at there. He obviously respects Coach Scott Drew and respects Coach Self. I thought he had an interesting interaction with Jensen, I think is the Utah coach, and like, okay, there's some mutual respect there that I didn't know existed in a good way. I just him going to Kansas the bell cow is interesting. Like, this is he talking about the depth of the conference? Is he trying to say like, no, this is Kansas losing a few games speaks to really the depth of the Big 12, not them being down. He did say at one point, I thought, something to the effect of like, in the transfer portal era, everyone's going to have a down year or two. That's just what Kansas went through. They'll be fine. Did you think, was there any pessimistic thought in your head as going through this about Kelvin, like maybe trying to say something deeper between the lines as he's talking about Kansas?
Yeah, I think right now they have them ranked 19 in the preseason portal, which I don't really like the preseason rankings for other reasons, but because I mean, like in previous years, I guess the last 2 years, you could say that Kansas has been ranked pretty highly coming in, and then they kind of fell off towards the end of the year. I kind of see an opposite effect this year. They have them ranked close to the bottom of the top 25, but I think with the roster and the talent that they have on this year's team, I think they'll move up a couple of spots once they get going.
Yeah, I think there's a couple teams today that had freshmen that would do that. And so I want to close with this thought. And Derek had this first. Once JC said Derek Johnson, Locked on Jayhawks, he had this thought. I think it's a great one. I'm going to run with it all year long, so I'm going to introduce it to you too. Everyone acted like the SEC was the best conference of basketball last year. And last year they did have the NCAA champion. They had 2 of the 4 teams in the Final Four. I could wax poetically about how Texas Tech should beat Florida and Houston should have beat Florida, but neither did. And that's the way it goes, right? And, Houston had the 5 losses, 3 of them were the SEC schools, whatever. Derek pointed out, and I'm going to roll with it all year long, so thank you, Derek, that the SEC did not win the national title in 2023 or 24, but still claims, but over the last 10 or 15 years in football, that they're the best conference, even though they didn't win those 2 titles. Why is the Big 12 not able to do the exact same thing to the SEC in basketball by saying, look, yes, last year you got us. We've got the better part of the last 15 years, right? I feel like there's validity to that argument from a couple fronts, but I also think that validates, again, my Locked On James colleague, Kansas in a lot of ways too. Like, that's really just 1 or 2 years of the last 15, and that's an interesting way to look at the conference as a whole. Do you think, after seeing the athletes walk around here, and like AJ Devontae is tall?
Yeah, I got huge. AJ, we'll see you in February.
He's not your biggest fan.
Nah, but it's love though. I like AJ Devontae as a player. He did pretty good in that FIBA tournament. I watched him over the summer. I was pretty tapped in with him and Cole Pete. But he doesn't seem to be a fan of the Houston Cougars.
Well, and Cole Pete's another one that was a giant to see in person. Just does not look like an 18-year-old kid. And we see Baylor guys walking around right now, like just big, strong guys, right? I think it's safe to say that this is the best conference of basketball again, if it ever really wasn't. And I think when you frankly lose Texas and Oklahoma and gain Arizona, Houston, this version of BYU, it's kind of hard to argue anything else.
Yeah. So your question was why don't we say we're the best conference?
Yeah. What's holding us back?
I mean, it just comes down to the fans. I mean, because really, that's a fan perspective. That's a fan take on who's the best conference. I mean, there's media biases or whatever, so those probably aren't going to go away anytime soon. Just because, like you said, the SEC has just dominated in football for so long, and I mean, it kind of, I feel like what you do in football that kind of sets the tone for everything else. But I mean, it's just the fans. Like, get out there, start saying Big 12 is the best conference.
Well, one place you can see all of that unfolding is Coog TV. Kenneth, I know the 3 of y'all, you and Daniel and Jess, you all went around and videos and this and that. What you got cooking up? What are you going to turn this into from the week at Big 12 Media Days from Coog TV?
Yeah, a lot of press conferences. Daniel or my boy Kevin, he's back home. He's nice with the edits. So we got a lot of footage in the back when they were doing their photo shoots. So Kev, you might cook something up for us, or Daniel. My man Chancellor Johnson, he was doing this thing on ESPNU today. So shout out to him. But yeah, we got a lot of stuff, a lot of clips coming to the timeline tonight. So it's been exciting though.
It's been exciting. It is nice to be at Big 12 Media Days where people are talking about Houston in kind of like a daring way. I heard one, I don't know how official this was, so I don't want to say anything too crazy. There was one guy walking around saying apparently one of the questions they were asking in the back was like, okay, someone in the conference you want to dunk on. And like Milos and Emmanuel, Houston guys like, I don't know, pick a center. Florida Badunga or whatever. Like, pick one, right? And apparently like 95% of their players in the conference said JoJo Tugler. Like, I think that's a lot easier said than done.
Yeah, dunking on JoJo, that's gonna be a tall task. And I mean, even then, you're gonna have Cenac. Cenac's gonna be holding down in the paint too as well. So trying to score on either of those guys is gonna be a challenge.
Well, and I think JoJo has shown before, if he has to foul you to keep you from dunking on him, he will. Yeah,
JoJo is not a stranger to getting in foul trouble. He's been talking about keeping his hands to himself. Yeah, so I want to JoJo, don't be fouling people, but I mean, if they're trying to dunk on you, you gotta do what you gotta do. But stay out of foul trouble, JoJo.
Just a funny, and that's the fun of media days, right? You can see and hear little snippets of, like, I don't know, maybe it was just an exaggeration, but it's funny to hear what people say when those kind of things happen. Sign off here at Locked On Cougs. Go check out Coog TV, the social media feeds, and all the things they got cooking up as well. Be bringing down more as they head into Arizona State this weekend, and got to talk some about the Sun Devils, which are going to be missing a pass catcher. We found out today at Big 12 Media Days, which may impact the game in a lot of ways. Hit subscribe, hit the bell, when we go live. Locked on Coogs, the primary Locked On podcast. That means your team every day. Go Coogs, Kenneth. We don't have to be impartial here. We can say go Coogs.
Okay.